All right, this is reteaching factoring quadratic expressions and solving quadratic functions. So this is really a review of sections 4.3 and 4.4. Okay. So some vocabulary to start off with. A monomial is a polynomial with only one term. A binomial is a polynomial with two terms, and a trinomial is a polynomial with three terms. Factoring can be used to write a trinomial as a product of two binomials. The zeros of a function are the x-intercepts, or the values of x for which the function's value is 0. All right, so key concept. We know we can FOIL to multiply two binomials and get a trinomial. So this is a binomial times a binomial, and we get a trinomial, three terms. Now to go backwards, we use factoring. So I can start with a trinomial and write it as a product of two factors. So when we have a simple one where a is equal to 1, we notice that we just have to factor the constant term and find the factors that add together to give us the middle term. Okay, so this method is sometimes referred to as the guess and check method. Okay, so here's example 1. So we want to factor, that means we want to write it as a product of two binomials. So we look at the constant term 24, and we want the factors that could possibly add up to be 14. So if I look at 2 times 12, ooh, that's 14. But we want a negative 14, so I have to make them both negative to make it a negative 14. So that's where we get x and x to get x squared. We have minus 2 and minus 12. And that is it. Okay, now sometimes they become a little more complicated. So whenever we have an a that's other than 1, so we have some number in front of our quadratic term, okay, then factoring becomes a little bit more complicated. I now have to find the product of mn times kl, and then I have to see the combination of factors that add up to be the middle term. So one way we can do that is with the box method, or we can do the guess and check also. Okay, so here's example 2. So we know we want to write this as a product of two factors, or two binomials. So step 1, you multiply the first term, 2x squared, times the last term, negative 6. And that's where we get negative 12x squared. Now we look for the factors of negative 12x squared that can give us negative x. Well, it looks like it's going to be positive x times negative 12x. When I add them, I get negative 11x. So if I go to the box, some of you like the box, that's perfectly fine. You put the first term here, and you put the constant term there, and then you put the two factors. Now factoring across, it looks like we have a 2x that comes out of both of these terms. Nothing comes out, so we put a 1. Here we have an x, and here we have a negative 6. There you are. Your factors are 2x plus 1 and x minus 6. And voila, you are finished. Now, we need to check to see if there are any common factors first. So in reality, when we're doing our factors, we should always check for GCF factoring first. Then we look for special cases. And then we just factor, into two binomials. So you can use the guess and check method or the box method. Okay? And when I say special cases, that means the difference of two things squared, which factors to a plus b times a minus b, or a perfect square trinomial, a squared plus 2ab plus b squared, and that's going to factor to a plus b quantity squared, or a squared minus 2ab plus b squared, and that's going to factor to a minus b squared. So these are the special cases that I'm referring to. So here's example 3. If you notice, there is a common factor in all terms. So step 1 is to take that out. Then I have x squared minus 6x plus 9. So notice when I factor out, I really are dividing by 2. And then, if you notice, I think I can factor this. This is going to be an x and an x. We want 3 and 3, and both of them are going to be negative. Or you can write this as 2 times x minus 3 quantity squared. So notice this was a perfect square trinomial. Okay. Example 4, whenever we find zeros of a function, all we do is we set the equation equal to 0, factor, set each factor equal to 0, and solve for x. So example 4, it says find the zeros of this function. So step 1, we set that equal to 0 equals x squared minus 6x. Notice we have two terms. I think I could factor out an x. Now I have two factors. We set each factor equal to 0 and we solve. So here are your two solutions. And remember, you should check your answers also. So that was a quick review of how to factor. Now you're going to work on the factoring quadratics worksheet. Okay, so you're going to check your answers to the odds. And Dr. Nichols is going to grade the evens. That's it.